Hi there, it's Nicole Lewis-Keeber, the author of How to Live Your Business, and this is the author read along cat hair. And we have gotten to chapter 8, which I'm going to be reading for you today. If you are interested in getting a copy of this book, you can get it on Amazon. You can either get a hard copy like this, or you can download the Kindle version. And so you can have it for yourself to do the exercises on your own, or feel free just to hang out here for the read along. Um, Yeah, like I was asked so many times, like, do you have an audio version of this book? And so I had to keep saying no. So I figured, hell, I'll just read it to you. And as usual, and with every chapter, I just let you know that I have a learning difference that makes reading aloud a little challenging sometimes. So I'll do my best. Not going to do a lot of editing. Don't really care about perfectionism here. So if that bothers you, perhaps maybe go read the book in your own voice. But if you're down, I'm down, and we're at chapter 8, and we're going to be talking about how to love your inner critic today, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. I do have a furry friend with us here today around my feet, and I am hoping that she will behave herself and we'll be able to get through this. Oh my goodness, I'm through a salon. Okay, chapter 8, How to Love Your Inner Critic. So as I mentioned in the last chapter, we all have an inner critic. Often that voice is a holdover from a formative relationship, a critical parent, a tough teacher, or a demanding first boss even. Now, while some self-help gurus will insist that you should dismiss this inner critic completely, I've even heard people say kill it. I have found that the inner critic may actually have some wisdom for us, so I don't do that. So we just need to learn to listen to it and tap into what it's telling us about our childhood selves and about our nervous system selves. So recently, a client was feeling defeated and ready to give up on her business, and she struggled to remember why she had even started it. I'm not sure if you know what that's like. I certainly do. And she was being really brutal with herself, and she was also being pretty nasty, abrupt, and resentful towards her employees. I asked her the question that I learned to ask as a therapist and have modified since studying with Brene Brown. I asked her, "What is the story you're telling yourself about this?" And she said, "The story I'm telling myself about this is that I am not meant to be a business owner and that my father was right about me not being capable enough to do anything more than be a teacher or a mom. I'm telling myself that my employees don't like me and that sorry, and that they only want the money and that eventually they'll just leave because I'm not fun to work for. I'm telling myself that I'm dumb and that they were right because this is all too hard and I don't think I can do it anymore." So I'm wondering if you can relate to that inner dialogue. Like I definitely can relate to that, and it's something I continue to work with to this day. The voice inside my head can be really nasty. It knows my deepest fears and most nuanced triggers, and it's going to go for it every time, given the chance, every time. The most intimate relationship that you have is with yourself, and in turn with that inner voice. To leave it unchecked and to let it run amok without getting to know it and setting some boundaries is absolutely devastating to your mental health. It needs your attention, and you must create an intentional relationship with it as well. Sorry, I think my cat, little furry friend that's down here, has managed to get cat hair all over my face. So sorry about that. So when you do a search on Amazon for books about the inner critic, you'll see a lot of titles. Many of them are going to tell you how to slay it, to banish it, to conquer it, to annihilate it. There's even a book called Retrain Your Brain: 7 Strategies to Fire Your Inner Critic by me. I don't think it's there anymore. I think I took it down. But yeah, I fell for it. I fell for that for that advice early on in my business too. And I spent many hours battling my inner critic, all in the name of building a better business and improving my mindset for abundance. And it's rubbish. Now I say it's just absolute rubbish. So please do not kill your inner critic. I don't think it is even possible to kill it because it's a biological function, but don't waste your time and energy trying to kill your inner critic. It's kind of impossible. So learn how to approach it differently. And so let me share with you the journey of your inner critic in an exercise that I do with my clients. Okay, so there's a part of your brain called the limbic system or called the limbic brain or the limbic system. And it is the seat of the emotion and memory. And also, it is also in charge of survival responses and impulses such as fight, flight, feeding, fear, freezing up, and sex, and all the things. The amygdala, which activates the fight or flight response, and is also a part of the limbic system. So humans learn through physical and emotional experiences. And as children, we might get hurt when we touch a hot stove, or we may be emotionally hurt emotionally when someone close to us is mean or critical or withholds love. We learn from both physical and emotional experiences. And when we burn ourselves on the stove, our reaction is pretty straightforward. Our brain says, that stove is dangerous, stay away from it. By and large, most of us do that, or at least we approach it with care afterwards, unless you're me and you're not that great of a cook. I digress. When someone we depend on for survival and safety is critical, mean, or harms us emotionally, if we can't really take care of ourselves without that person, the initially the amygdala will say, this person is dangerous, stay away from him or her or them. But because you can't get away, for example, if you're a kid, you rely on them for your safety or it's for your survival. And you may live with this adult. And then often what happens is that you internalize that adult's judgment of you. This must be my fault. So you're wrong. You shouldn't talk back, express your opinions, or put your needs out there. And our reactions to a hot stove is our brain's need for survival, whereas our response to emotional hurt can become an internal echo of voice that was drilled into our heads when we were kids. We learn not to have a voice. So when I ask the client to tell me the origin story of her inner critic, she usually tells me the first instance of her experience of emotional shame. That's typically what people will tell me. They'll also tell me that sometimes the voice in their head is still that person's voice. I also ask them how old they were when this happened and what they as a little kiddo needed in that instance. And when we then, sorry, we then work together to go back internally and give it to them. We go through this process on many occasions at different ages until the client feels that they have mapped out the hot spots for their inner critic and what the inner child experience was connected with them. It's not unusual to have a huge wall of sticky notes that looks something like this. 4 years old. Father yelled at me and spanked me for wetting the bed. Inner kiddo. Felt shame and needed to be reassured and tended to. Inner critic voice. You're a mess, you cannot be trusted, and you don't deserve a nice bed. 7-year old. Teacher scolded me in front of the class because I did not know how to read a word correctly while reading aloud. I was put into a remedial reading group. This is me. Inner kiddo felt shame, singled out, and stupid. Inner critic voice became the teacher's voice. You're stupid. You need to be publicly shamed and separated from the group. 13. The girl in my friend group didn't invite me to her birthday party. She said I was too loud and wanted too much attention. Inner kiddo. Felt excluded, humiliated, and ashamed. Inner critic. Became the 13-year-old's friend's voice. You're too loud, too much. Who you are is not acceptable. You need to be quiet, listen, and not seek attention. By the end of this mapping exercise, people have quite the menagerie of voices connected to their inner critic, all with different scripts of why they are not good enough and need to be held back or managed in some way. And what ends up happening, sadly, is that they begin to believe that those voices are who they are. And we all take on the mantle of that inner critic, continuing the pattern from within. Like maybe that teacher's long gone, but you're still saying that mean thing to yourself. By the end of that mapping, we also have a huge list of inner children that need something that they did not get. Our inner critic does not react differently to the threat of physical harm and the threat of emotional harm. Your inner critic is the protector of your inner kiddo. All it knows is that it somehow needs to keep you contained so that you don't get hurt by achieving success, whether it's starting a business, creating a product, giving a talk, or yes, writing a book. The fury with which my inner critic comes at me as if I were considering scaling a mountain with no safety gear, jumping out of a second-story window, or eating a suspicious plant I see on a hike, it will try and stop me at all costs, including using shame against me. One thing I do to help my clients tame their inner critic is to give it a name. If we personify something, we can relate to it, and we can talk back to it, and we can often listen to it differently. What this exercise also does is it externalizes the inner critic. Then and only then can we stop believing that it is the core truth of who we are, because it isn't. Think about the voices in your head that battle you and hold you back or torture you while you're doing the thing that feels risky. They can have many different energies. So here's some common manifestations of the inner critic. These are the most common voices that I have seen in my coaching and therapy clients over the years. So the first one's the worrier, the voice that is wringing its hand, worrying and saying, I don't know if this is a good idea or not. Or we've not heard back from that client. Something must have gone wrong. The insecure bluffer, the voice that is trying to talk you out of the thing that you want to do by saying to you, this is stupid. Why do you care about this anyway? It doesn't matter because it won't change anything. It's insecure and it's trying to bluff you out of doing the thing. The annihilator, this is the voice that is most connected to your shame and it knows how to stop you in your tracks and shows up in the most amazing ways to sabotage yourself. It is saying to you, you're stupid, not popular. No one cares about what you have to say. You won't survive this. Each of these voices holds space in your head and shows up in different ways, and each of them can be managed a little bit differently. But make no mistake, each one of them has one job, and that is to try and stop you. If the worrier does not succeed and the insecure bluffer cannot stop you, the annihilator will rise up and take its turn. Left unchecked, this vicious cycle. Left unchecked, this is a vicious cycle. And luckily, there is another way to handle this. So, as I mentioned earlier, your inner critic is the protector of your inner kiddo. So, the inner child is the part of you that experienced these shaming events and was taught that the experiences were not safe. So, therefore, the child was not safe. Whenever your inner critic presents itself, it is because one of your inner kiddos has been triggered and needs something. The sad part is that we've not been taught this. We've been taught by countless business motivation books that the inner critic is a character flaw and needs to be destroyed. What we need to do instead is to embrace it as a partner to our healing because there is a message there for us. How do you think sorry. How different do you think your life and business would be if instead of beating yourself up for being triggered, mm-mm-mm, and then battling with your inner critic, you stopped and said, I hear you. What message do you have for me? What do you need? It would be an absolute game changer. The majority of the time, this is what happens with my clients. And I stop the war, honor the voice, and ask it what it wants. When the inner critic steps aside, the message that's usually revealed is some past self feels unsafe and needs some attention. In my practice, I help clients commune with that tender kiddo by doing an exercise that asks them to tap into the moments from the past where they felt less than, shamed, or different in some way. Then we plot out which of those younger versions of themselves seem to be impacting their business, and we do a visualization. Let's say I had a 50-year-old client who wanted to go back to their 7-year-old self. We would create a space where my client could go back in time to connect with their 7-year-old self and spend time with her. She would close her eyes and see her, ask her what she needs to feel more safe, more loved, and more intelligent. That's mine. And then she could talk to that younger self and say, hey, I hear what you're saying. I'm really sorry that happened to you. I am your future self, and I'm letting you know that you're okay. We're safe. You're safe. We already did all that. I'll never forget the day when I realized the power of my inner kiddos had over my mood, my behavior, and ultimately my business. I had been running my new business for about 2 years. It's about that 2 year mark where everything kind of came to fruition. And I was driving to a networking event about an hour from my house in the snow. I was aggravated and agitated from driving on slippery roads with low visibility. So when I got there, I was already in a terrible mood. I'm from the South. I don't like driving in the snow. As a result, I did not feel social. So I sat at a table in the very back of the room and did not engage with anyone. The inner critic in my head was talking a blue streak about the stupid people at my table. I remember this so I'm so embarrassed. Oh my God, I remember this day so much. And it was so funny even now to read this in this book. Okay, so the inner critic in my head was talking a blue streak about the stupid people at my table, about the person who was speaking from the stage. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. And at one point, my inner critic even whispered in my ear, I'm not going to participate in these icebreakers because they're dumb. The whole reason I had come to this event was to network. But I sat there, not participating, quietly judging everyone else in the room Needless to say, I made no connections. And as someone who speaks, like this is the worst case scenario when I think about people in my audience doing this to me. Not only are they not going to pay attention, but they're going to go into battle for me with me from the audience. Oh my gosh. Mm. So it felt like my body had been possessed by someone or something else. My adult self was there to make connections, to improve my business and move it forward. On the drive home, I could not shake that feeling. The feeling that I was not alone. Like it was weird. Something was trying to get my attention, and I was on the highway, and I just could not take it anymore. So I pulled over on the side of the road. I turned off the car, and I said, "What? What is it? Who is that? What do you want?" And as clear as day, I heard a voice in my head, and it said, "Why do we have to keep doing this? It feels like the first day of school in the cafeteria every time, and we don't know where we belong." I recognized in that moment that it was my 10-year-old me who was in the networking meeting feeling lost and alone. And bear with me here. Another inner child who was actually my 16-year-old self took over. I've since named her Sadie. Sadie hates everybody and everything, so she is very connected to the inner critic. She's the one who put me in the bad mood, who said, "This is stupid. All these people are lame. This is a dumb event." Why did she interfere? Because she needed to protect the 10-year-old Nicole. This was my aha moment that the 10-year-old me was scared and that she was replaying the circumstance in the cafeteria of feeling unloved and uncared for. And then my 16-year-old self, who was very much a rebel, was trying to protect her. When I realized this, I said aloud, "I am so sorry. I get that. I am so sorry that you, little 10-year-old Nicole, thought that you needed to be a part of this adult situation. Next time, I'm going to make sure that I let you know that you can go play. You have no requirements or responsibilities in this adult situation." At future networking occasions, I have dismissed Sadie too. She's not good at networking. I would say, "Listen, I got this. You can go smoke behind the bleachers, and I'll call you when I need you for something." Once you realize your inner kiddos are impacting the decisions you're making in your business, you can talk to them and gently dismiss them with love. The truth is that our inner critic is not a bully, but a protector who deserves our attention and love. The sooner we learn how to do this, the sooner we're able to disrupt the inner critic patterns. Life coach and author Martha Beck does something similar in her book, Steering by Starlight. She shares her technique of dealing with her anxiety and worry. She personified both as a dragon. The dragon's name is Mo, and it sits on her shoulder. Every time that she starts to get into her head feeling critical about who she is or something that she wants to do, she recognizes it's not really her inner critic trying to hold her back. Rather than shaming herself, giving in to the anxiety, or complying with that critical voice, she will imagine that little dragon Mo and she'll say, "Oh, Mo, I know you're anxious about the situation. I understand, and it's going to be okay." Then she imagines feeding him some grapes, and he sits quietly munching his grapes because he has been acknowledged, seen, and cared for. When Beck does that, she writes the critical voice tends to go away. When you can learn to love and honor your inner critic and all the juicy life transformations and information that it has for you, that is the gateway to emotional and financial success as well as sustainability for your business. That's my favorite chapter. I'm curious about your inner critics. What ages are they? Who are they? If you have any questions or thoughts about this, I would love to hear them. And thank you for witnessing my story about my inner 10-year-old and my 16-year-old. It was fun reading that story again. I'll see you in the next chapter.